Hello everyone, and welcome to Season 7, Episode 18 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host, Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches in CHIKARA history with match number 33 on our list, which is the match between Juan de Coronado and Zack Sabre Jr. from the CHIKARA Counting Backwards event held on November the 5th of 2016. This is a match that at the time, it was post-CHIKARA restart. Not a lot of buzz to the promotion or anything like that, but this was one of those matches that got people talking. It was, I believe, like a live internet pay-per-view thing that they were doing on CHIKARAtopia, and that was just kind of starting to launch. This was a match that I remember going out of my way to see at the time, even though I wasn't largely following CHIKARA. Juan Francisco was, a CHIKARA project that kind of came about, during the restart. He was a student. He wrestled in the Wrestling is Fun promotion in that 2013 to 2014 era. I mentioned this before. Him and I kind of had a little back and forth. When CHIKARA did the You Only Live Twice events for the restart in 2014, when he wrestled Jervis Cottonbelly on that show, and I kind of made a comment on Twitter about, being hyped for CHIKARA to be back, but not really wanting to see a Wrestling is Fun offer match on that promotion, and he took umbrage with it. He was a guy that never really connected with me too much, but this match, started to turn that a little bit, and he's someone, and I've mentioned this, that, on this big CHIKARA rewatch project, especially, those later years where I didn't follow it as closely, I missed a lot of his title run that was really excellent and had a lot of really, really fantastic matches, some of which obviously, have made this countdown already. This match was really kind of the turning point for him, and it's a really important match that I felt led to him becoming champion, because, he had this rise through CHIKARA, but this was the match that legitimatized him as like this technical wrestling expert. And that's something that I thought was so important watching his title reign back, where, you can't help but watch him and be like, yes, he's a dastardly heel. Yes, he'll do whatever it takes to win, but he'll only resort to those measures if he can't win through his technical prowess himself. Which is something that he has in spades, very much like a Ric Flair or like a Nick Bockwinkel in that regard, where, yes, he's this jerk and he's dastardly, but he can back it up in the ring and you just know that he's good. And the story here is so great because they bring in Zack Sabre Jr. as the export for this match. At this point, Zack was, going through the ranks in Evolve. He was a couple of months, before he would end up winning the Evolve Championship from Timothy Thatcher. So he was right on the cusp of that, was a main eventer, had really established himself as, one of, if not the best wrestler in the world at that point. This was before his New Japan run or anything of that sort. So this was a really, really big name to come in and work with Juan. And like I said, this match did so much for him because essentially they kind of did a double turn throughout this match. And it's not something that would stay with Juan where the crowd would be behind him, but they would really root for him almost in the, he's our homegrown CHIKARA guy against the import. And by, the crowd getting behind him, like I said, it established that, kind of twist into his heel title run where, the crowd knows that he's this technical wrestling expert and he's that good. And this match really established that because Zack, ties him up in knots and outclasses him a little bit, but is really arrogant and has this really great chip on his shoulder that we see out of heel Zack Sabre in New Japan now. And this was, kind of an early glimpse of that. This match is also super weird because it has Joey Styles on commentary for it. And I completely forgot that Joey Styles did this run as a CHIKARA commentator before he got himself excommunicated out of wrestling by making, really derogatory remarks about females and Donald Trump and whatnot on an Evolve event. But, here he was, doing commentary on a Zack Sabre Jr. match. It's super weird, especially watching it now. It feels so just off and foreign, but also at the same time, kind of weird and cool. There's just a big difference in this match because like all of Zack's holds, he's really trying to like punish Juan and almost like embarrass him and outclass him. And he's the first to kind of take it to strikes too, with a big flying kick, but he misses a diving knee off the top. and Juan is able to immediately like go to work on his knee, like hitting these body slams into the ropes and tying his leg in the ropes. And, you know, Juan is really kind of looking to like win this match, whereas Zack, you know, has that chip on his shoulder and maybe feels that he's above Juan and above this match and really just wants to kind of show off and make this dude pay. And Zack's got this great ego where like he's immediately kicking out of pins, like not even letting Juan get a single, you know, 1 count or 2 count, and, you know, and sitting up from them, but then he eats like a big PK. And from that point, you know, the match really starts to become chippy and a bit more aggressive, and Juan gets a busted up, bloodied mouth. And, you know, that really starts to kind of get the crowd to side with him a little bit and build kind of this sympathy to him as Sabre's just ruthless, like ripping apart his arm and twisting it. And there's this great moment where he ties Juan's arm up with his legs and does that like kind of like, you know, I call it like the Ultimo Dragon kind of neck twist thing, because Dragon would like stand on his head and flip a guy around, but he like does that, but then like sells his bad knee during, and it's all just really, really good, and a real testament to just how great Zack Sabre Jr. is. And he's just great, you know, mixing in all of these brutal strikes throughout, you know, the technical hold trading that is this match. There's a great moment where they're trading shots while they're seated, but they're hitting each other in their targeted limbs. So like Juan's, you know, going to the knee and Zack's hitting strikes to the arm, and they end up going to their feet and trading European uppercuts and forearms. And it's really starting to get, you know, intense and building into this, you know, I don't want to say like out of nowhere, because I think you would expect these two to have a good match, but it definitely goes well past what you would expect of this, you know, kind of just technical match, and it becomes this war of attrition between these two guys, just beating the absolute tar out of each other wherever they can. And there's this amazing Zack Sabre moment where he like baits Juan, he like locks in a full Nelson, but like, you know, he's not Chris Masters, right? It's not the master lock. So he uses his full Nelson, so then as soon as Juan grabs the ropes, he's able to like kick the arm out and then hit a half and half suplex, which is no doubt, you know, what he really wanted to hit. So it's this great like human chess game of, you know, doing something to make your opponent react, but knowing how he's going to react, so then you can then get the advantage and do the move or hold that you were actually wanting to do. There's a wonderful moment where like Zack goes for the PK to kind of pay Juan back from earlier, and it gets rolled into the Coronado clutch, but then Zack rolls out of that and gets the PK for 2. Zack kind of becomes like diligent on going for like the gym break special, which is like an arm kind of like almost like a Kimura kind of but lifting arm lock, and he keeps going for that. And Juan's trying to fight out of that and like get into a figure 4, and there's this great visual where, you know, he has Zack in the figure 4 and he's dodging, you know, all of Sabre's slaps and kind of like begging him to hit. So Sabre ends up like just grabbing his arm and locking in the break special while he's in the figure 4. So Juan, you know, finally has to get a little dirty and cheat and goes to Zack's eyes. And again, it's just really cool, like visually stimulating, great wrestling. They roll around on the floor and Zack starts, you know, with his crazy, you know, orienteering with napalm death or whatever he calls his weirdo moves, where he ties up like every limb possible. And Juan gets to the ropes, and at this point the crowd is, you know, really starting to get behind him. They're cheering the rope break and they're starting to chant for Juan, and you could tell like he kind of feels like a little like thrown off that like, oh my god, the crowd's actually behind me. I'm a heel, but they want me to win, and I don't care if you're a face or a heel. That has to feel good when you're in there with one of the best wrestlers in the world. We get a great near fall where Juan's big Germans countered into the European clutch for 2, and like nobody was kicking out of the European clutch at that point. So again, that was a really cool, really great near fall. Juan gets a big dirty chop block and gets the German for 2, but then it's countered into an arm bar, and then this tiger suplex lift into an arm bar, but it all ends up getting countered into the Coronado clutch. And it's enough, and Zack Sabre Jr. taps. And I can't stress enough how big of a deal that was at that point, because again, Zack Sabre Jr. was 3 months away from winning the Evolve Championship and really becoming this main event, high level, rarely losing independent talent. So for him to come in and put over, you know, this CHIKARA student right before then, really said a lot about, you know, what business he was willing to do. Joey Styles, you know, you can criticize him all you want, but when that man's on, he's on, and he delivers like the, oh my god, you know, but like at the submission, and it was just completely perfect. The crowd gives this match a standing ovation. The whole thing is just an absolutely wonderful piece of business that did so much for one individual and led him, into becoming the champion of the promotion and having this great run. And I truly believe if this match didn't happen and didn't go as well as it did, then that would have never happened. So Zack Sabre Jr., hat goes off to him for just being an absolutely wonderful wrestler that can give, somebody, one of the best matches of their career, certainly the best match of their career up until that point. And Juan Francisco, being more than just along for the ride and doing his part wonderfully and fighting from underneath and getting this crowd, to fall in love with him, even if it was for, one night only. This match is fantastic. You can watch it, of course, on independentwrestling.tv. You can subscribe to my channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. And please join me again next time as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.